Hello, Ryan here, aka Mac, and welcome! Alpha 3.17 has hit Wave 1 PTU, so today I would like to take a look at what this patch has to offer, but more focusing on what you might not know about. As always, a big thank you to all of my patrons and channel members. In particular, a big thank you to Nick Clare and Deathfire for upping their pledge. It is very much appreciated. So we all know about the big ticket items that are coming in with Alpha 3.17, which I will briefly touch upon here, very briefly, but what I really want to focus on are the smaller changes and updates that were not highlighted on the release view, but are still quite impactful and very significant regardless. For 3.17, the ones that we know about are character head updates with improved skin textures, more head choices, and those wet look eyes. Lorville's Hospital, Maria Pure of Heart, which I must say is my actual favourite hospital so far. More variation between space station clinics, a coffee shop vendor at Area 18, mining gadgets, which I am still even to check out myself. The first river in game to eventually help CIG place hundreds of rivers on all appropriate planets going forwards. Ship-to-ship refueling, which is a great support career. And of course, selling, which is probably one of the most significant details to make Star Citizen more of the MMO. Oh, and the Misk Hulle, which I believe was just added to the most recent PTU build, as well as the RSI Scorpius coming in a subsequent 3.17.x patch. Now, we've all heard about these, and personally, I am loving each one and looking forwards to checking them out more individually to see what they all have to offer. But as I mentioned earlier, I'm here more to talk about what else is in the build, as there is a lot of other updates to make Alpha 3.17, more than what the release view makes it out to be. So in no particular order, the first one I want to talk about is the weapon stagger rework, which allows players to keybind the option to toggle their weapons by type and group, meaning weapons that have a fire rate of up to 750 meters a second can fire one after the other, rather than simultaneously, just like we see with turrets. A very nice addition that could suit some players more than what we currently have. Whether I will stick to using it, I don't know. I'll have to give it a go. Another new change is the tuning of hunger and thirst rates, so increasing the speed at which they decay based on what the player is doing. So the more running and jumping you do, the quicker the rate that you will need to hydrate and eat, which I am fine to try as it is alpha, get it to that higher rate, see how it feels, but whether I personally feel this tweak is the right rate or whether it's too much or too slow, we will still need time to figure it out as the game evolves. I'm sure if it doesn't feel right, it will be tweaked even more. It is definitely not final. Now, one update that I was very happy to hear begin rolling out in 3.17 is the FPS Weapon Refactor, which is an ongoing effort to thoroughly improve and balance all the FPS weapons in the game to get them more to where CIG intended them to be. Now, this is something that we have been in need of for a long while now, and with Alpha 3.17, they have adjusted the weapon sway and recoil values across a wide range of rifles, SMGs, shotguns and sniper rifles, and now the characters will move their hands and weapons in a more aesthetically pleasing way, providing more of a look and feel of weight and movement to the weapons as you would expect them to have. This should leave the weapons feeling a lot heavier and punchier, as well as some of the weapons behaving completely different, like the Clausen Werner Gallant Laser Assault Rifle now having 3-round and 5-round burst options. Now, a lot of these changes to the current weapons I'm not a huge fan of, as I do have my favourite weapons and go-to weapons, which appear to be changing somewhat. But I do understand that CIG want the weapons to be more unique and provide a greater range of choice and distinction with what we have now in the alpha. And I'm sure that we will see many more weapons down the line, fill all the other roles and provide more choice. But I am very happy to see this FPS weapon audit begin rolling out from 3.17, which in turn should heavily improve all aspects of Star Citizen's FPS mechanic, most likely intended for Squadron 42, but inadvertently affecting the PU as well. Now next we have quite a fun one. It is cluster missiles that now actually launch their little mini missiles again, doing so when they are closer to their target. Also, if they are dumbfired or they lose their target due to countermeasures, for example, they will launch their mini missiles after a few seconds and attempt to fly straight, instead of flying around in circles like we used to see with a lot of missiles. Love the look of how these missiles work. Great to see more polish and improvements to cluster missiles. Should be fun testing them, as I don't think I've ever used cluster missiles. So now's a good time to try them, I guess. Now, a very small change to turret gameplay to make it more believable and likely to balance it a little bit as well is a more realistic turret acceleration speed. They won't now instantly reach max speed, but accelerate towards it, which will likely give more of a feeling that you are actually in a turret and potentially help to balance the turret gameplay, adding a little more skill to the using them, and I suppose in a way to make them a little less deadly. Now, one great new addition to the PU is the reduction in ship-to-ship desync. CIG has added a networking update to reduce the networking time delay so that ships are synced closer to the correct moment in time. And compared to 3.16, they say this should reduce a lot of the issues we have been seeing. Now, I have also heard from many Evocatis that it doesn't just improve the ship-to-ship desync, but it improves FPS desync between players and pretty much all areas of the game. We did hear that this isn't a full fix, more a temporary improvement, resulting in less large-scale positional jumps and more smaller, less noticeable jitters. Very happy to hear that they are continuing to improve desync in Star Citizen, and hopefully it is just going to keep getting better. Now, this next change is something I would have loved to have had during Jumpdown 2.0. They have adjusted the ground vehicle signature emissions so that they are more difficult to detect at increased distances. So when Jumpdown 2.0 was happening, I was hoping to get more involved with my org for the event, but instead of actually going in and fighting and grabbing the drugs, I was hoping to use it as an opportunity to sneak up on a ground vehicle like a Dragonfly and practice some reconnaissance from a distance, but the ground vehicles were just too detectable at range, so I decided against it. So I really hope that this change makes it now possible, but also it could just be a good way of balancing the ground vehicles more, with Gravlev maybe producing higher signatures to wheeled vehicles. A nice trade-off, I would say, as the Gravlev vehicles are probably going to be a little quicker than wheeled vehicles. I still need to test this out further to see what the ranges are for the various Gravlev vehicles. I think the Nox was originally like 3,000, Dragonfly 10,000 and above. So a nice quality of life update that will hopefully give more reason to using ground vehicles in 3.17. Now, the next update is a polish pass that I am very excited for, as it is for the player injuries, which brings an overhaul to the injury system to firstly increase the likelihood of sustaining an injury during repeated combat encounters, but also decrease the chance of instant death. Secondly, there is now a scaling % chance of triggering early injuries when taking damage to a body part, which is actually assessed each time that part of the body receives additional wear, as well as there being a short cooldown between these triggers to stop it happening too much. Thirdly, they have also made the bleed mechanic less severe, so previously each body part would bleed individually and then stack accumulative damage, but now the stacking is no longer happening and its damage rate has been reduced. Now, it was also mentioned that the bleed functionality will change again at a later date to be affected by injuries, which does sound interesting, but this current change better represents the intended experience, they say. And I have actually found this to be quite useful already. After getting shot in a bunker, I began to bleed out. But instead of it just bleeding out super quick, leaving me dead, I had enough time to search and find a multi-tool medical attachment in one of the loot boxes and help myself before I did. I also hope that these changes will increase the chance of players waiting for a revive, so that myself and my org's medical division can get in and learn more about the medical system and get some much needed training in. Now, next up, we have physicalized ship components, but this is actually referring to a major overhaul to the ship's personal inventory storage to allow ship components to be added to the inventory. So players can now move ship weapons and components to different inventory spaces, transporting them from one location to another based on where they want them to be. So a great quality of life improvement when it comes to ship customization, and as we know, we are now able to also sell any ship weapon and component that we don't want, which is extremely helpful when upgrading, being able to sell an unwanted weapon or component and put that money towards the one that you do want. Also, I expect this is a big step towards actually physicalizing all ship weapons and components for future gameplay mechanics like engineering and salvaging, so being able to physically interact and remove these items. So a great win early doors and a nice step to future changes as well. Now, one new feature that I'm sure everyone is extremely happy to see is the inclusion of a keybind to request landing from an ATC, which so far I have found it to work flawlessly, regardless of whether I am leaving a hangar or a garage, already making my life so much easier in the verse. Next, we have some IFCS or Intelligent Flight Control System quality of life changes, in which the ship's afterburner will now only drain when actually thrusting. And if you enable cruise control when in decoupled, it will actually force coupled mode back on. Also, something that I was told and tried, and it works, was being able to get out of your seat when in cruise control. Now, this isn't likely a 317 specific edition, as it did work in the past, but I had not tested it for a long while because I didn't realize they'd fixed it. So very happy that we can now set our course, stick cruise control on, and just wander the halls of our ships, knowing we are still flying in the same direction. Anyway, back to the quality of life updates. They also added an optional weapon keybind to fire all weapon groups at once, which can be found and bound under keybinds, advanced controls, vehicles, weapon tab, fire weapon all. So very nice addition. Now, the second to last feature is more for content creators and the photographers of the verse. It is the ability to disable camera spring movement, which means while in third person, you can turn off the dynamic motion that CIG introduced to give an appearance of movement and drama. But of course, when you're trying to snap that long lens screenshot, even the smallest of movements can change things massively. So turning this off will disable that extra motion and keep the camera perfectly still for you. Now, on to the final and I would say most significant inclusion into 317 of everything, in my opinion, of course, is the integration of quantum into the backend. Simply put, very simply put, the quantum simulation is a background system that drives what the NPCs will be doing in-game and thus the economy to basically simulate and handle the full universe. It is really a big deal in getting the PU to feel alive and responsive to players' actions, driving trade, missions, encounters, and so much more, and even that was a poor explanation as to what it is. In 317, the very first steps of this system is coming in by way of simulating NPCs in the background, so known as Quanta. They will be flying around and purchasing quantum fuel, hydrogen fuel, and repairing at stations. And although the player won't see these NPCs as they're only the lightweight entities running within the simulation, so not physically in the universe, but what we will notice are the price fluctuations for these three commodity types. So one day you could be going to Green Glade L1 station, and the price of fuel there might be X Alpha UEC, but when you go back a few hours, days, or maybe even weeks later, the price could be even higher or lower due to all the stations and LZs now having finite fuel and repair resources, and these AI going around and purchasing them. So it's really starting the supply and demand process, which will heavily affect Starfarer refueling, as the price to buy these resources might be way too much for you to make a profit, and you'll need to fly around checking prices before you refuel your Starfarer, as you will struggle to make a profit otherwise. Now, it also mentions, in addition to this, quantum is now impacting the frequency of some environmental missions in certain areas. Mostly, it says, around rest stops. And this is by way of Pirate Scout environmental missions and Freighter environmental missions and a few others. Now, this I find very intriguing. I think all of these NPC service beacons that keep popping up in 317 are a result of what the Quanta are doing and where they are found within the background simulation, maybe triggering a very simple probability volume once the player accepts that mission, but I'm not entirely certain as to what is happening, or whether these are missions I have yet to even see in the game, but service beacons have definitely ramped up. Hopefully Tony Zarevek talks further about what is exactly happening here, as I would love more information into what they have managed to get working based on his last talk during CitizenCon. But for me, this is the real winner and hype feature for 317. It is a massive step in realizing the PU as what it is going to become, and one of the main pillars of the game. The whole game will be based around this dynamic economy, driving all the NPCs, and so getting this first step in for 317 to then expand from is huge, and I can't wait to see it evolve from here. I will keep an eye out for these missions to see exactly what an environmental mission is, Is it referring to the probability volume encounters, or are these something else? I have no idea. Either way, my hype went through the roof when we first heard that Quantum was coming in with 3.17, and hopefully as soon as 3.17 Wave 1 smooths out, which it may have done now with a second Wave 1 PTU patch just released, we may actually get to check out how this affects players in-game. Anyway, those are some of the lesser known but equally exciting updates coming with Alpha 3.17. It is a very impressive patch to kick the year off with, and if Salvage and the Cargo Refactor can come this year as well, hopefully in with 3.18, as well as expanding on Quantum, then we will be in for quite a ride in 2022. But with that said, if you do enjoy my videos, please do consider subscribing and helping the channel to grow. Also, come and hang out over at twitch.tv/supermacbrother. You are all more than welcome over there, new or veteran. We are certainly trying to check out 3.17 as the patches roll out. Hit the thumbs up if you don't mind, it does do the channel a big favour, and tick that notification bell if you would like to be notified when my videos go live. Again, a huge thank you to my patrons and channel members for your continued support. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.